All right, Daniel Hobbs, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for
I'm
having me on.
good, absolutely. No, I'm looking forward to hearing your story. You said you were just doing a workout before this. I'm
Yeah.
curious what it was. What were you doing today?
I'm doing the beach body insanity during the
Ah, okay. So
yeah,
you are a direct disciple of Andrew Hamilton then,
I
because I know
am.
that's his favorite.
Yep, he got me on this, and I swear I curse his name every time I do it. It's hard.
How, so you are still in Minnesota, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I live
Okay.
in Bloomington, Minnesota.
So I'm from Wisconsin originally, but
Oh, cool.
I definitely want to hear not only how did you fall in love with the Colorado 14ers, but I guess first of all, how did you meet Andrew Hamilton and Andrea Sansone?
I met them. I called Andrew actually before I started off on my record
Okay.
last year because I was really confused about some of the 14er rules.
Mm.
And Andrew was like my hero for my entire adult life. He was like
Same.
the god of Colorado mountaineering. And so anyways, I reached out. We set up a time for a call, and call happened. I thought it was just gonna be like 5 minutes to answer my questions. We had like the best 2 hour conversation I've ever had. It was amazing. The whole time I was like giddy because it was my hero, and be like meeting the president. Probably more exciting for me than meeting the president, honestly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's we connected by that, and then we met, climbed a mountain together, and then I've hung out with them personally, and I was ran crew for Andrea on her Nolan's run this year, Nolan's record,
Mhm.
and so yeah, that's kind of the story. Now I'd say they're great friends of mine.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. Well, they're both special people. And yeah, in the Colorado mountaineering world, they're like, I almost hate to say it, but like gods, man. Everybody
Yeah,
looks up to them and they've got a
yep,
lot of knowledge and they're willing to share all that knowledge with people who are interested in the same pursuits. So, yeah, they're
yeah.
definitely special people. But how did you, as a Midwestern guy, fall in love with the Colorado 14ers? And, I'm even more curious about how one trains for setting the speed record. I mean, so
Yeah.
I know this isn't about me, but real quick,
Yeah.
14 years ago, I think I was living in Wisconsin and decided to come out and climb all the 14ers and
Okay.
lived in my truck and climbed them all. And, it took
Nice.
me a couple months. I averaged like one a day. And
Okay.
I'm just,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was an accomplishment for myself at the time. But I'm just curious, like, how does a Midwesterner even train for something like this? I mean, it's such a big feat for someone who lives in Colorado, let alone a Midwesterner. Like, how did this all start for you?
Yeah. Well, one question first. What part of Wisconsin are you from? I'm from Wisconsin too,
Oh,
originally.
really? I'm from Janesville originally.
Ah, cool.
Do
Awesome.
you
I'm
know
from Eau
Janesville?
Claire.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I know Janesville. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
other side of the state, but I'm from Eau Claire. So
Yeah,
cool.
cool. Nice.
Well, cheers. Yeah. So it started for me years ago. So my dad got a job in Colorado, and he actually flew every week to Colorado. And when he was out there, he would get bored after work and go climb mountains. And so when I would go to visit him, 17, 18, 19 years old, he'd say, "Hey, let's go hike something." So that kind of started, but I really hated it, to be honest. My first mountain experience, I have zero positive memories about it at all. Like I literally hated it. I was altitude sick. It was cold. It was snowy. I didn't even make it to the top. It was one of the worst things I had ever done. And so it really wasn't until my 20s that I got into it. I'm divorced and remarried, and um, but out of my divorce, I was dealing with some severe depression, a battle with suicide, and I'm a spiritual person. I believe in God, and literally one day I sat up in my bed, and when I say like um, dealing with depression, I mean, I was in bed like 23 hours a day. I couldn't work. It was really bad.
Mm.
Um, and I sat up in bed and said, I'm going to go climb the Colorado 14ers to beat depression. And I like literally covered my mouth up. because I had no, like, it just came out of me. It wasn't me. It was, I believe it was God.
Higher power. Yeah.
Yeah, it just came out, and I was like, oh my gosh. All right, well, I guess that's how I'm going to beat depression. And um, I didn't even know there was 58 of them. When I found out, I was like, oh, that's a lot.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That's more than I had bargained for. But so that was in like May of 20 2013. And so I trained. I have two kids. They were pretty young at the time. I was in Minnesota, living basically in downtown Minneapolis, and which is the whole area is flat as a pancake. So I put my two kids in a burly and biked them around town, and that was my training. And I did what you did. I went to Colorado, and I climbed them all. I really had no set plans. I showed up in a Saturn SL2, and um, I really had no idea what I was getting into. I printed off all the routes on 14ers.com, and about 10 days after I got there, I left. I bought a Tacoma. I found a Tacoma in an old four-wheel camper on Craigslist, and bought that, and went at it, and I finished them in 24 days. Actually, the first time, and
Wow.
I had like no plans, no idea how that was gonna go. I was terrified. I mean, it was so mentally hard because I was so inexperienced and so terrified the whole
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm. I can
A lot
relate.
of
Believe me.
yeah, I bet. I mean, a lot of ways, the setting the record was less mentally difficult because I knew what I was getting into. And
Sure.
yeah, so but I finished them in 24 days. And would you know it? I beat depression. It wasn't like the end of it instantly, but it was. I was over the hump, and that was my path out of depression. But I finished them in 24 days. That kind of set this seed that, wow, I'm pretty fast at climbing mountains. Maybe this is something I could do. I was aware of the record. I had been following Andrew's exploits, and so for literally every day from that time until I set the record, I thought about it every day.
Mm.
That's just what I wanted to do with my life. It was the one thing. In 2015, I sat myself down and said, what are the things you can't live without? Like if I got old and I looked back and said, I regret not doing this. That was the one thing that I said I can't live without, is if I do not set this record, I'll just hate myself forever. So yeah, that's the background.
So this record was like calling your name. It was something you couldn't live without.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good and bad. um, it was, I honestly, it wasn't like asking for it. It's just, it was there. It was in my mind. I was in my downtown Minneapolis office with a, suit coat on in 2015. And I saw the news article that Andrew had broken the supported record. And that was the moment I said, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to have this suit jacket on. This isn't me. That is me. That should be. I remember I specifically said that should be me. Now, granted, I don't think I'll ever set the supported record, that and so yeah, it was like a calling, I would say. And sorry for rambling, but like I
Oh.
find my happiness in the mountains. I beat depression, but the what I find in the mountains that help me beat depression continues with me on mountains today. Just a sense of joy and inner peace and calmness and confidence. All of those things they're amazing when I'm up there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is your background? Are you a runner? Were you into anything athletic growing up? Like you have to have some sort of base level fitness to even come out and climb the 14ers.
Yeah. I actually have never competed in a single sport, like competitively ever. I didn't play a single sport growing up. Um, I only started running after I climbed them all the first
Mm.
time
Okay.
in 2013. So I came home from that. I was pretty fit. Ran my first marathon and a bunch of 5 and 10Ks, and I try to run a marathon every year now.
Okay.
But yeah, it was all very late in life. I mean, I don't know, what was I, 27 or something when I climbed them the first time, and so
Okay.
that was literally the start of anything athletic in my life. I don't think I had run more than 2 miles in my life at any given time before
Wow.
that.
Wow.
so,
Well, that's
so yeah,
pretty impressive.
Yeah, really no background, but now it's a big part of my life.
It's funny, man. So it seems like we have a lot in common. When I came out and climbed the 14ers originally, excuse me, after climbing all day, every day, and getting used to this almost endorphin rush every day, and that
Yeah.
being almost like an antidepressant, it was for me
Yeah.
as well. Then you
Hmm.
come back home to the Midwest and there's no mountains, and it's like, what do I do with
Yeah.
my time? And that's when I started running as well.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we have a lot in common. That's really cool. Yeah, because I mean, there's only a few things you can do around here. Running is one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm also interested in the depression aspect, if you don't mind talking about it. Like, how dark and deep did it get for you? Was it something clinical or diagnosed, or was this a self-diagnosis? Just like, I'm
Yeah.
curious what that looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it was dark for sure. I had almost a year battle with suicide. Um, and I, um, it was rough. I don't want to get into all the details, but like,
Mhm.
it was really bad at the time.
Mm, mhm.
It was a dark place to be, and it's a place I never want to go back to. I did not have it diagnosed. I don't think I needed it diagnosed. It was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
When you can't get out of bed for 23 hours a day, that's pretty rough.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, now it's a big part of my journey. Honestly, like I'm glad I beat it. I'm glad I beat suicide. Obviously, I want to be here. But for me, I've been able to help other people going through that. But also, like, it's in my past, and it's part of me, and it's part of my story, and it motivates me honestly to keep moving. Like, to having that behind me is motivating in life, and every day without that is a good day.
Yeah, 100%. And you said that you beat depression, and a lot of people struggle with that, or depression kind of follows them their whole life. Did you just strictly beat it by getting outside and climbing, or was there anything else you were doing, like, I don't know, journaling or antidepressants or therapy or anything like that? Or was it just solely getting outside and climbing the mountains?
Climbing was a big part of it, but like you said, then I had to come home,
Yeah.
and it's especially this time of year. It's I'm looking out my window. I haven't seen the sun in like 4 days, and it's miserable out, and that's hard. So yeah, I mean, I do still deal with like some seasonal depression living in Minnesota. I think pretty much our entire state does, to be honest. Uh, but yeah, I mean, if I could stay in the mountains all the time, that would be amazing. I think that would be helpful, but you got to find other ways in life to deal with that. I started running back home. My social circles changed. I found a great group of people who cared a lot about me, and that changed a lot of things as well. There was a lot. I mean, I was post divorce. It was a really messy situation. There was a lot of really heavy stuff back then, and so a
Mhm.
lot of it can be circumstantial or situational. As well. And if you can focus on finding the situations and circumstances that help you not, you know, dive down into the dive back into depression, or not dive is the wrong word, but fall. I liken depression and suicide as like a dream. If you've ever had a falling dream where you never stop falling, and you're like reaching out trying to find the walls or something to hang on to, and they're just not there, and you just keep falling and falling and
Mhm.
falling. That's how I could describe depression.
Mhm.
Like, there's nothing to hang on to. There's nothing to stop you. There's nothing. You don't know how you got there, and there's no way to stop it. Um, so for me, like, finding life choices where I find the good things that help me avoid it altogether, and then really focus on those, and try really hard to avoid the things that push you back towards it. So
Yeah. Do you have any other, before we get into the 14ers, I'm just curious
yeah,
about this. Do you have any like tips or tricks, or say anybody's listening to this and they're depressed and they're wondering what they can do? Um,
sure.
Getting outside and moving, obviously a big deal. And I'm a strong proponent of that. And I encourage people to do that. But anything else that worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would want to preface this and say I think one of the worst things is when you are dealing with depression. Some people have lifelong chronic depression. Is people trying to solve it for you? So I shouldn't even laugh. Like it's people. Oh, if you just do this, you'll be fine. You know, there's nothing like that. There's literally anything I say doesn't necessarily apply to anyone else. Everyone's depression journey is their own, and it's unique to them, and it happens in its own way to them. I will say, I mean, there are some things that are helpful that probably help a lot of people, but yeah, getting outside. I honestly believe like humans and nature were made to interact with each other, and a lot of the mental health um, crisis that the whole world is in, honestly, is rooted in how we now live our lives. We live in these very controlled environments. We live in cities with high-rise towers. We live, in cement jungles, and even if we don't, like I live in Bloomington and basically the woods here. It's gorgeous outside, but in the winter I'm inside my house almost 24 hours a day, or inside an object, a man-made object or another building. And it just, I don't think we're made to live like that. I think we inherently find joy and life by interacting in nature. And so with that said, I think if anyone would benefit from getting out of the cement jungle, and getting out of the noise, and getting out of the house and the man-made and everything, and just get out in nature where it's quiet, it's just you and something natural. It doesn't even have to be in the summer. The snowy winter woods are incredible. Just sit down and just hear the silence, and I think most people would find some healing from that situation.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. So you were, debilitated, right? You're in bed 23 hours a day, and you get this sort of vision. Something speaks to you and says, you're going to go climb the Colorado 14ers. And at this point, it sounds like you're willing to call that God or your higher power. What was that experience like? That had to have been daunting.
The God speaking to me, or going to climb them?
Well, both,
Well,
but
both.
yeah.
Both. Yeah.
While you're in bed and you're not feeling
Sure.
good about life, and you
Yeah.
get this almost like a premonition.
Yeah. I mean, I literally like put my hand over my mouth because I was like, "What the heck was that?" Yeah. I mean, I was just, but yeah, I was at a rock bottom, honestly. Anything. I was looking for anything, and
Okay.
so when that happened, it was like, all right, well, great, like finally something that sounds good. And so anything sounded good. And from the get-go, I was like, well, there's I literally didn't know there was 58 mountains. I didn't know that
Yeah.
till later.
Me too. When I went to climb them, I'm like, I wonder how many there are. Holy
Yeah.
crap, 58. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, exactly. That's gonna be a lot of work. Yeah, so like I started training, and just that, like I knew I had to train to go climb something. So that got me out of the house too. Yeah, I just got out on my bike and started biking the bike trails in Minneapolis, and that was a huge improvement just to begin with that. But yeah, I mean, it was scary. That whole summer, I was scared to death. I mean, it really wasn't until um, the end of climbing them, the last minute of the last day, that I wasn't scared that year. It was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I couldn't sleep. I mean, it was terrible because I needed sleep, obviously, but I was like so scared about the next day that I couldn't even sleep at night often. So yeah, wild times.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then, okay, so starting with 2013, and so correct me if I'm wrong, but you've climbed all the 14ers twice at this point.
It, most of them 3 to 7 times.
Okay.
And the only one I have only climbed less than 3 is Culebra.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, my technical 14er finisher was on the record when I climbed Culebra. And I totally forgot that it was my last one, that I had never climbed before. And I got like halfway back down, and I was like, oh shoot, I didn't even get a picture. So anyways, yeah, but yeah, at least 3 times, many of them 5 to 7 times at this point.
Okay, sure. And in 2013, how did you navigate like the logistics of this whole project? Because you were probably going into this with the same mindset as me. Like, I don't know Colorado. I don't know what these mountains are like. I don't know how to connect them in a way that makes sense. It's all just kind of up in the air, and this is going to be one crazy adventure.
Yeah, yeah. I was very untechnological about it. I had my Delorme paper map and my another printed Colorado map, and I put little stickers where all the mountains were, and I got a highlighter out, and I drew routes between them, and I put them in order. I did read Cave Dog's record route, but I really didn't follow it. That's kind of irony now looking back. I'm just like, why didn't I just do what he did?
Mm.
For some reason, I thought I had a better idea than he did. I guess I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I started on Pikes Peak, which was a really dumb thing to do, and finished on Longs. So there was some like I like reversed the first half of the Cave Dog route, and then probably followed it pretty well on the second half. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was poorly planned. I lost an entire day wandering around in circles because my paper map said there was a road over the Sangres from the west side up to Mosca Pass, which there is only a road to the east side. Uh, and so I'm in Sand Dunes National Park with my map, driving around in circles on these like sandy roads that are almost non-existent. And this ranger, I finally run into a ranger, and I'm like, "Where is this road? It's on the map. I need to get to the other side of the mountain range." And he just starts laughing. He's like, "I think they closed that in like 1941 or something." And so that was the level of expertise I had the first time around. It was rough. It was a trial by fire. I did a lot of learning, um, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to find out, like how bad the Coma Road is, and
Oh yeah,
all that sort of stuff. So
for sure. Yeah, there's a huge learning curve there in the beginning.
yeah.
But to have finished 58 peaks in 24 days, I mean, that's pretty huge, especially for someone who's not familiar with Colorado. You must have been averaging 2 to 3 peaks a day to get that done. What was your mindset at that point?
Um, I mean, I was still honestly, I was still like I needed to feel value in myself. Myself. That's why I went fast. Like I wanted to feel accomplished, and I wanted to do them as fast as I could. I actually had no idea when I started how fast that was going to be.
Sure.
Like I didn't really have I was like, man, if I could get these done in 30 days, that would be insane. Like, and if I don't get them done, if it takes me 40, that's fine too. Um, and just every day I just kept plugging away. And somewhere in halfway through, I was like, I think I'm going to get this less than 30, and then really didn't. Honestly, I had no idea how long it was going to take until I finished. But yeah, I needed to find value in myself, and that was the majority of it. I needed to find out how much I could do and how capable I was as a person, so I could find value back in myself. And
Mm.
and that is I do have some natural premonition in the mountains, and I found that out that I'm better at this than most people. And
Mhm.
at that time in my life, I felt like I was worse at everything than most people, and so to have that was really meaningful for me. And I'm an Enneagram 3 personality, an achiever, and if I can't achieve, then I'm not happy, sort of thing. And so that was valuable to me to discover that.
Mm. And to have like a month off to be able to do something like this, were you in between jobs or did you take a leave of absence from work or what do you do for a living?
Yeah, like I said, I had not worked in like a year
Okay.
at that point. So I had owned a business and sold it prior to that, and then I bought real estate, and so that's been kind of the backbone of things. And after the record, I went back to work, and um, so on and so forth. I've taken the last 2 years off of full time work.
Mm,
Uh, sorry, after the 2013 climbing them, I went back to work, and then I was able to take 2 years off because we
okay.
own rental property and whatnot to set this record as well.
Nice. Why haven't you moved to Colorado? Is it because of the rental properties and what you have going on in Minnesota or what's up?
No, I have 2 kids, 15 and
Family.
10 years
Got it.
old.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and their mom lives in Wisconsin, so
Got it.
that ties me here.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Wow, man. Um, okay. So 2013, you finish all the 14ers in 24 days. You come back to Minnesota. What's life like? Are you just instantly a changed man, or is this still a process that you're going through?
Yeah, I mean, depression was. I mean, it was like 3 or 4 years to really feel like I had gotten my hands on it.
Mm,
But I mean, it was 50 to 70% better
mm,
by the time I got done climbing the 14ers.
mm,
So yeah, that was great. It wasn't easy when I got home though, because I came back, and I started running, but life was still hard. I still was in the middle of divorce and had a lot of uncertainty in life because of that. And I love my kids, and they've meant more than anything to me. But that situation was rough at the time, and so yeah, there's just a lot of heavy stuff. But I got myself back to work, and um, started running. I think I ran like 20 races that fall after
mm.
that. Almost I think every PR I have still in my life was from the fall of 2013. I, st- I still I don't know. I got old, I guess. I just can't run that fast anymore.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I mean, it was a journey though. And like I said, I ended up starting a company, and um, it just wasn't me. Like that company, that what was going on, it wasn't my personality. And I had to go down that journey to figure that out. And then, yeah, so
Mm.
I think one of the great things about maturity and growing up, um, growing up is, I think, something you mostly do as an adult, and is you find out like, hey, it's okay to be me, and it's okay. Like I don't have to do these things that are not me, just because someone else says I should or whatnot. Like I can go work in something that is me, that I find fulfilling, and I'll thrive in that situation. And I had to go through a journey of that, and I think the mountains helped with that. Like ultimately, if I could get paid to climb mountains, that would really be me. But I suppose if that was the case, a lot of people would be getting paid to climb mountains. So, but yeah, it's a journey. That's all I could say.
It is a journey, and I understand your connection to the mountains too. As soon as I got into the mountains for the first time, I just felt a real connection. I felt home, and I felt
Yeah.
relaxed,
And
and I just felt like this is where I'm meant to be for some reason. I just felt I think I've said it before on this podcast. Some people are really connected to the ocean, some people are really connected to the mountains, and I was just the
yeah,
mountain guy. So
yeah,
sounds like you're the same there.
yeah, definitely. I like the word you use, home. I feel that way. Like I don't. I think that's a deep word if you really think about it.
Hmm.
And often when I get back out there, and I have family in Boulder, so I, climb Bear or Sanitas or something, and just get up there after dark. I just it's just this like release of tension. I'm like, and I've used that word multiple times. Like, I feel home now.
Mm.
It's kind of beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, I live in Boulder, so those are my
Oh, cool.
peaks, man. I'm up and down
Yeah,
those guys pretty regularly. So,
awesome.
okay, so you climbed all the 14ers. You come back to Minnesota, you run a bunch of races, and you're doing some running at this point. Um, are you traveling back to Colorado occasionally and climbing 14ers in your spare time, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so between 2013 and 2020, I have a spreadsheet. I'm gonna guess I'd probably climb 30 or 40 mountains in the interim there. My dad is my lifelong climbing buddy. He's the one
Mm,
who dragged me up and begin with. He's in his 60s, but most 20-year-olds can't keep up with him. I can still barely keep up with him
wow.
most of the time. And yeah, and he loves the technical side of things, and he doesn't like 14er trails. He likes wandering off route and
Yeah.
exploring and stuff. So
Yeah.
we've done every year. I try to get out. There's only one year I didn't make it out, and every year I'd try to go out for a week or two to climb, and with dad, and that's always really awesome. And then I ski as well, so I've had the Epic Pass for 5 6 years now, and try to make it out there to ski in the winter as well.
Okay. Cool. And so did this idea of setting the speed record, was this a seed that was planted in your mind and something that was growing for a long time?
Yeah, like every day it was in my mind since I climbed them the first time. Like
Yeah.
probably within, I mean, I was a real mess the first time in 2013. I weighed 133 pounds when I got done. It's not good for a 5'11" man, you know. I was a hot mess. In fact, this time after the record, I was better off physically than I was that first time. But you know, so like a week after I, you know, had recovered finally in 2013, I was like, I gotta do that again and faster. and and then you know, I found out it was years after that though that Peter's record finally got posted on FKT.
Mhm.
Uh, just because I don't think FKT was even around back then. If
Right,
they were,
right.
that wasn't even on it. And so I didn't know. I knew there was a record. I had like talked to some people and heard. I think I had found out about Peter, but I didn't actually know any details about what the record was. So there was like a time of ambiguity. I'm like, maybe I have the record. You know, like, I don't know. I did it in 24 days. I literally couldn't find any actual details that anyone had done it faster. Um, and even though, you know, compared to the supported records, it was kind of silly that 24 days should be a record. But anyways, I did find out about Peter and the 16-day record, and so yeah, I mean, I literally had thought about this every day. Like my
Wow.
mind would wander. In fact, it was interesting that so I set the record. I stayed like a week in Colorado afterwards, and then came home, and I was at a local beach with my kids. It was a gorgeous sunny Minnesota summer evening at a, you know, our beach. They were off in the water playing, and I was laying there, and it occurred to me like I don't have to think about the record anymore because that's literally where my mind went anytime I had a free moment ever in 9 years. And that was the moment it really sunk in that I had set the record, just because I don't have to think about it
Mm,
anymore. So yeah, it had like permeated my entire life for
yeah.
9 years.
Wow. When did you get serious about it? When did you put pen to paper, start reaching out to Andrew? And what did that process look like?
Yeah, so 2020, I was working for a nonprofit. Was not working out that great for me. And so right before COVID, I didn't know COVID was going to happen. And like, I don't know, it was like December or January. I gave them 2 months notice and left my job. And part of that was so that I could go set this record. And
Mm,
at the time, I thought I was going to set it in 2020. And then I thought I was going to set it in 2021, and then finally I set it in 2022.
mhm.
So, but I really needed those 2 years. I did not understand how little I knew to set this record, and a record like a 14-day self-supported record, just like a 10-day, you know, supported record, requires so much perfection. It is not something like, oh, I'm super fit, I can go do this. Like the logistical side of it requires so much perfection. So
Right.
it took a full 2 years of planning and training and trying routes, and then realizing they're wrong, and then, you know, re-strategizing, and hundreds of hours at my computer from 2020 all the way through, you know, July of 2022 to get it right.
Wow.
And I really didn't even have it right until, well, I still don't have it right. I know I can do it faster because I realized in the middle of the record I screwed something up logistically. I, I was like, I could have saved a whole half a day by this. But anyways, it's a journey again.
For sure. And then so 2022, did you come out here in like August, September range of the year, or when did you do this?
I started July 5th and finished July 19th.
Also July. Okay. So a little
Yeah.
bit early in the season. Did you run into snow or what was it like during that time?
Yeah, so I got out. I wanted to come out in May, but my kid's school went longer than I thought it would. And then I got out in early June, and I thought I was going to go straight into the mountains. I wanted to get 30 summits done to get my, you know, just it's a thing of mine. If you get 30 summits, I feel like uh, climbing mountains becomes more like work than some great endeavor, and then it's a lot easier to set a record that way when it's just, you know, "Oh, that's what I'm going to do today." And it didn't work out. So the full first week, my van wasn't ready, and it took a whole week to get it ready. And so it was middle of June when I started, and there was so much snow and ice in the middle of June still. Oh my gosh. My first, there was a lot of other problems. So I mean, there was snow, ice. The first, I went to start on the Wilsons. Um, so I drove down, you know, over by Telluride. And I got up the Wilson Road, and there was like 50 trees down across the road from the winter.
Mhm.
And so I ended up spending an entire day chainsawing my way up the Wilson Road. So if you've done the Wilsons this year, you can thank me for opening that road. Uh, and then I mean, it was a long day with a chainsaw, and and then that, like, I left at 1 a.m. the next day to climb all three of them, and then I was gonna go try to get three more mountains that afternoon. And like the entire approach was ice. I mean, it had been melted snow in the day, and then at 1 a.m. it was about 20 degrees and solid ice.
Mhm.
So yeah, there was like, and that was a trend through a lot of June. A lot of that melted out by July. There's very little snow and ice in July, which was good in some situations, and it would have been easier between like Capitol and Snowmass if there had been more snow and ice, because the rock is so rough. But so yeah, it was a good mix this year, I would say. I think I really lucked out. I mean, not to jump ahead, but like the weather was hard, but it was worse. Like every other set of 2 weeks, the entire summer was worse than when I did it. And
Uh,
it wasn't great, but like everyone else had worse weather climbing anything either before or after I set the record. So
okay.
not complaining at all.
Yeah. So between June and July, were you just waiting for a weather window?
No, I was trying to get all. I still had a lot of questions on my route, even though in 2021 I climbed all the 14ers at least once, to figure out these routes, and then I spent hundreds of hours on my computer. I still had like a whole bunch of questions coming into 2022, and so I was trying to answer all of those in June. And I also, like, I had no idea if I could climb that fast. I had never done that many mountains. I had to do over 4 mountains a day on average, and so I did the first third of the record, and I tried to do it at the full record pace, and I completely failed. Like, it was terrible. I mean, I was a hot mess. It took me almost twice as long as I needed to set the record, and I was kind of down about it because I'm like, well, shoot, like, well, how am I going to set the record? I can't even do a third of it in one stretch, and so that's when Andrew really helped out. I had called him after I went and climbed those. I ended up getting 25 summits in June. Um, and then I called Andrew in the middle of that, was looking for advice, and no one's better than Andrew for
Mhm.
how to climb the 14ers and set records.
Mhm.
So, he was amazing. What a wonderful person on top of that, and he gave me, it wasn't like he told me which mountain to do when and how. It was more some overall advice and a strategy shift and stuff that I had. He mainly told me to slow down. Like, you're going too fast. Just slow down. Like, you got to get 14 days of this. You got to get the record, and the record's at 16 days. So slow down. I was trying to do it in 12 to start with, and he's like, "There's no record if you don't finish." So,
Mhm.
so yeah, that was great, and that changed things. I kind of redid the whole route in June. My van got hit. Um, I was supposed to start June 27th, or no, June 29th, and somebody hit me on June 24th or something like that. Bent the rear axle on my van. It was a horrible experience. They actually intentionally hit me and pushed me off the road.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was really bad. And then he tried to run me over when I got out of my van, and then he tried to physically attack me, like punch me when he got out of his car. It was all very crazy. It was bad. The guy had like 3 pages of assault on his record, and it was a really wrong place at the wrong time. However,
Wow.
I was really bummed because it ripped the rear tire off my van, dented. The whole side was crumpled up. I'm actually just picking it up next Tuesday. It's been in the shop for 2 months. Um, and it yeah and so this is like 3 days before I'm supposed to start the record, and I don't have any idea how this is going to happen. So I was able to get the spare on, get it back to Buena Vista, and the tire shop in town ordered a tire which was going to come in on Monday. I found out the axle was bent, so I had to take it back. Took it back to Longmont and found somebody who dropped everything they were doing to figure out how to get that thing fixed in like 2 days. And it was amazing, but it delayed the record a week. And the worst part is when it happened, I had no idea if I could delay the record a week because I had my permit for Culebra and I had my train reservation already.
Oh,
And if I delayed it a week, that means I was starting on July 4th holiday weekend. And I called the Silverton train, and the first person I talked to said, "No, there's nothing like the entire week. You're screwed. There's no
mm,
availability."
mm.
And I just about died because 2 years of my life invested in this, and then
Yeah.
the Culebra thing. They had no reason to change my reservation either, and if they say no, then I'm just toast. And this over one crazy road rage incident that this guy had, and so I talked to a friend out there, and they were like, "Oh, call the train back. Like, depending on who you get, I bet you'll get a different answer." I'm like, don't they just have a computer system that tells them what?" So it turns out, like the next day, I called them back, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we got available any day. What do you want?" Um, Anyways, but for like 24 hours, I thought this whole thing was over. I
Right.
was like, I was a mess. I mean, I was angry. I was crying. I was like, oh, I was so mad. That all this was happening all of a sudden after 2 years of my life, and here we are. And Culebra, all those sell out in like February. So if if they don't move it, I'm never going to get one. And their reservations end in the end of July, so it's not like I had much time to make this happen anyway. So that was a crazy whole thing. And and that's why I started July 5th instead of a week earlier. And turns out that was amazing though, because the weather that week that I was supposed to start was the worst. I tried to go climb a couple mountains that week, and I got destroyed. I mean, it took me over a day to recover off of getting blasted by Yale in a massive thunderstorm after dark.
Mm,
And like it was like hypothermic, all sorts of stuff. So turns out God was watching out for me.
yeah, totally. Totally. Um, and then what was the very first peak?
So I started in Chicago Basin
Okay.
and climbed Elois. Got going at 1:40 a.m. and a storm, and got lost about 20 times trying to find the top of Elois. It was a rough way to start. I lost. I had to get you got to get in the train at
Yep.
10:40 a.m. So you have to get 4 mountains done and get down from Chicago Basin to the train, which is 6 miles, 6.5, almost 7 miles, and 3,000 feet by 10:40 a.m. And by the time I got off of Elois, I was an hour behind, and then I was altitude sick on Wyndham. I had to sit down like 5 times, and I was dizzy, and my eyes were blurred out. And, that was a hot mess that first day. So I made the train. I ran from the top of Wyndham to my campsite. Literally took the poles off the tent, my sleeping bag, my food, everything was in the tent. I just shoved it in my backpack and shoved the poles in it, and ran all 6 miles with a full backpack to the train to make it, and wrecked my knees on day one of the record. That was bad.
Okay,
Nothing
perfect.
recommended.
So yeah,
Yeah,
this is a great start to this.
yeah. And
So
I
in
had so oh Pete, sorry, not to
no,
ramble,
you're
but
good.
Peter Jones, the guy who had the record for 26 years, he missed the train when he did it, and he had to hike out to Purgatory, then hitch a ride to his car, and so he lost like almost a day. And he told me that before I left. And he's like, "Don't ever do what I did," He's like, "That was horrible," and it just, you know. And so the whole time I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what the," like I'm gonna end up just like Peter told me not to, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, that idiot! I told him not to do that." Oh gosh.
So, okay, so day one is not going exactly like you had hoped. Is there any doubt in your mind? Do you think maybe I should just pack this in and start over in a week or so? Or what was going through your mind there?
Well, back to the reservation thing of Culebra. I was pretty sure I had run my good graces out with the Culebra management,
Sure.
because I had to beg for more than one thing from them
Okay.
already. And then I had to change it a week, and that was, I'm pretty sure I was out of good graces. And so the first 5 days until I got both Chicago Basin and Culebra done, I was stressed out because I had to stay on schedule.
Mm.
Otherwise, I was either going to lose a day by having to leave the San Juans and then drive to Culebra, get Culebra done, and then drive back to the San Juans, which is, a long drive.
Mhm.
Or the whole thing was going to be over and I wasn't going to set a record in 2022. So it rained a lot those first couple days and I got destroyed in the San Juans. It was hard. It was tough. First day went bad. Second day was harsh. Every day was rough, but getting Culebra done was a huge relief. Just to make, just to get that weight off my shoulders, because at that point, like, as long as I could get done in less than 16 hours, I could screw up quite a bit after that, or 16 days. I could screw up quite a bit and still end up with a record
Okay.
after Culebra.
Yep. Yep. And for anybody listening, in case they're curious, Culebra is private. It's a 14er, but it's on private property, and you have to call and make a reservation and pay a fee in order to go climb this thing. So, yeah, I can understand how a lot was hanging on that because reservations fill up fast.
Yeah. I mean, they were sold out for the year,
Yeah.
like in February or something like that. So yeah, that was tense, and I think that makes those situations, the permits, make the overall 14er record a very complex and difficult record to set.
Totally.
Because you can't just like, oh, it didn't work out, I'll start next week. I'll start over. That's not a thing. Like, it's not how it works.
Okay. And you have your van at this point? You have it back?
Yeah, so the super nice gentleman, I'll plug his name because he saved the day. But the guys at All American Auto in Longmont, I'm not paid to advertise for them, but like, he was moving. The owner of the shop was moving his personal house, that day that I showed up, and his office guy called him, and he dropped moving his personal house and came to the shop and said, "I'll get your van fixed in 24 hours."
Whoa.
And that was like, right before the July 4th weekend. I had called like 10 other shops and everyone just kind of laughed at me and like, yeah, we're like 2-3 weeks out. Good luck, you know? And so he saved the day. I had the van. The van worked flawlessly for the entire record.
Okay. Is it a 4-wheel drive van?
It is. Its name is Beast. It's a serious 4-wheel drive van. So
Nice.
it's got 36-inch tires, lockers on both front and rear axle. Yeah, it's a pretty serious van. It's got a
Nice.
lot of. I could go on for hours about Beast.
But that had to have been a huge advantage as far as getting this project off the ground. You got to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle and something you can sleep in.
Yep.
It sounds like you were set up pretty perfect there.
Yeah, I bought Beast and built it specific for the record. So it was modified. I took the passenger seat out and put a microwave where the passenger seat was, so that I could make food while I drove. The whole thing was custom built just for the record.
Wow.
Maximum 14er racing efficiency.
Perfect. Yeah. And so you're out here all by yourself. You said that you have family in Colorado. So were you keeping in contact with people and did people know what you were doing, or was this just a completely off the grid solo project?
Well, you have to be. It's interesting because there's two sets of rules. There's the FKT rules and then there's the 14er rules. 14er rules have developed over a much longer amount of time. And one of those rules is you got to have a GPS tracker on you all the time. And so everyone knew where I was the entire time. And even though I was on my own, the whole world was watching, it seemed like. But I didn't know how much that was the case until I got back and saw like there was this massive online following of me, and people would wake up in the middle of the night just to find out where I was at the time. It was kind of fun.
So you had posted a link online before you started?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Got it. So family's able to track you and the rest of the world's able to track you. So
yeah,
when you make an announcement like that to the world saying, this is what I'm going to do, that makes it real. Is that kind of the feeling that you had in your stomach when you posted that? That's kind of a gut check for a lot of people. And some people don't have the guts to post that online in the beginning of the journey. They, if
Right.
and when they set the record, then yeah, okay, this is what I did. Then they let everybody know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to do it. To be honest, it's required by the rules to do it. Because yeah, like now everyone's watching, and now the pressure's on. If I fail, the whole world's gonna know that I fail. And the flip side of that is it's pretty motivating to not fail.
Right.
Like everyone knows you're here, so better make this happen. And I think there was only one time in the whole record where that thought crossed my mind of like, get up, Dan, get moving. Everyone's watching. Don't let them see you fail at this point.
So that wasn't necessarily a motivator for you.
No, I'm really internally motivated. Had no one ever known I set this record, I would have done it anyways.
Sure.
That might have even been my preference that no one knew I did it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a pretty quiet person.
As most mountain people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
So if you don't mind, like walk us through a typical day out there. I mean, you're doing 3 to 4 mountains a day, I think it sounds like. And
Yeah.
these aren't point to points because it's just you with one vehicle. So I'm assuming most of these endeavors are like either an out and back, or you're creating a loop so that you can come back to your van. But what does a typical day look like for you out there?
Boy, I'm not sure there is a typical day.
Yeah, they're probably all different. Yeah, you're just
Yeah.
improvising.
All right. Well, I'll just give you a day. I'll pick one that stands from that. Well, let's just go for the first 2 days. I'll just walk through that.
Sure.
That's easy. So up at 1:40 a.m., Chicago Basin, make it, climb 4 mountains, get back to the Elis is in the dark, completely in the dark. Sun came up when I was close to the summit of sunlight, and get down 10:40 a.m., take the train, get to Silverton, get in my van, drive from Silverton to Yankee Boy Basin, start Sneffels at mid-afternoon, get done with Sneffels, drive to Rock of Ages trailhead, which is it's like a 2-hour drive. So I got to Rock of Ages after dark. I think I got to bed at 10:30 or 11 p.m. that night, and my ambition to only eat while I'm driving, so I had more time to sleep, was not practical, because driving a 9-foot tall, 10,000-pound 4-wheel drive van is mostly a two-handed activity. And so I did end up not having the efficiency I was hoping for while driving. But so I don't know exact time, I could look it up, but let's just say I went to bed at 10:30, 11 p.m. I was back up at 1:30 a.m. The next morning to go climb the Wilson group, and got done with that at 10:30 or 11 a.m. Get to the van, throw some food in the microwave, take my recovery drink, and then I had a 3-hour drive over Ophir Pass and Cinnamon Pass, which is all 4-wheel drive driving.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's so exhausting, and that's the thing. When I made all my plans to set the 12-day record, which I set a 14-day record, but initially I had this 12-day thing in my mind. I did not account for how tired 4-wheel drive driving makes you.
Yeah.
After that 3-hour drive from the Wilsons, because I've been up since 1:30 a.m. But I was exhausted. Oh my gosh. I was I needed a nap from the driving kind of thing. So, 3.5 hour drive over to Handy's, I think it is.
Yep.
Over there, Handy's Peak. And following the Colorado rules, so you can't just drive up to American Basin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta not only not drive up the American Basin Road at all, I gotta drive down the main road a mile to get that elevation, the 3,000 feet below the summit. I was dead tired. I took a 5-10 minute nap after the drive, and then took off, got to the top of Handy's right before half an hour before dark, I guess. It was about dark when I got down back to the road. So it's I don't know what time it probably was. Let's say 8 p.m., 8:39 when I get back to my truck. Drove the 40 minutes from where I parked the van to the Sunshine and Red Cloud
Mhm.
trailhead. The correction, I said Sunshine Peak in Chicago Basin. That's Sunlight Peak earlier.
Oh,
Yep, Sunshine, Red Cloud. I ate dinner there. Went to bed at 10:30 p.m. Woke up at 12:30 a.m. and so that's 2 hours of sleep. And took off for Sunshine and Red Cloud. Got back at dawn from that. Got an hour of sleep and kept going. So that's how it goes. um, little increments of sleep. I averaged, I think, 3.5 hours of sleep during the record.
3.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only twice did I get more than that in a single shot. And one of those times was the last day. I just said, fuck it. I just don't care. I'm going to set the record either way. I'm going to get 4 hours of sleep right now.
Okay.
That was not scheduled. It was, I just was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I need sleep. And that's how
Yeah.
it's going to be.
Do you typically do pretty well without sleep?
I had never tried losing sleep before. And I tried it. I think my answer to that is no, because A, I'd never really tried it. And B, I did try it at home earlier this year, like in May, and I was so crabby and mean to my family. I was like, after like 2 days, I was like, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna be miserable to be around, and I was really crabby, and so I gave it a 2-day try and said, enough of that. We'll just see how this goes.
So it was all just kind of on the fly. It sounds like food and sleep are obviously essential to get a record like this done, but it sounds like those are sort of side pieces to your story. And it's like, I'll get to those when I get to those. Just got to keep
Yeah.
going, got to keep climbing.
Yep. Got to keep going. Peter
Okay.
Gave me great advice before I left. He told me one thing that I didn't believe turned out to be 100% true. He said, "This is going to be miserable. You're going to hate yourself." And I was like, "No, I'm going to have this is going to be awesome and exciting." And turns out it was miserable, and I hated myself most of the time. Uh, Secondly, he said, "Just throw your plans out the window and just keep going." He said,
Mm,
"Don't worry about your spreadsheets. Don't worry about your plans. Just don't stop." And I
mm,
think that was Andrew's advice too. I mean, that's Andrew's kind of motto is, don't be afraid of going slow. Just don't stop.
mm.
And so all the things, all the sleep, the food. I was stomach sick for 8 of the 14 days. That's a huge part of the whole record story. Um, and like you just keep going. The sickness made me go slower, for sure. I was throwing up. I was nauseous and dizzy. I couldn't do the Little Bear Blanca Travers because I was too dizzy to do it. But I just kept going, and that's how you set a record: is don't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think you were sick from? Was it the altitude or?
Yeah, I mean, altitude played into it. I seem to have developed a dairy allergy
Ah.
at a very inopportune time. Uh, and I think the stress on my body brought out an existing dairy allergy because I'd had minor stomach issues for years. Just they
Okay.
weren't like at home; they were just annoying and nothing else. And then with that level of physical exertion and lack of sleep, it became serious where I was throwing
Mm,
up every day.
mhm, mhm. So I'm curious, like you get in a car accident a few days before the start of your record attempt. You have a
Yeah.
stomach ache out there for days. Is there any doubt in your mind? Is there any time you're saying, okay, maybe this isn't my time? Or are you just 100% confident moving forward the whole time?
I don't know if confidence is the word, but when I started, I had every intention of finishing. Like
Okay.
it never once crossed my mind that I wasn't going to finish unless I died. But that crossed my
So
mind a few
even if you were
times.
right, of course. So even if the record was out of reach, you were still going to finish the 14ers.
Yeah, there was no question. If it took
Okay.
me You know, 17 days, I was still going to just finish in 17
Got it.
days. No
Okay.
way on earth was I not going to finish. And Peter gave me that advice too. I really appreciate him being the prior record holder and me going after his record and taking the time to say these things.
Mhm.
That was specifically one of the things he said. He said, if it looks like you can't finish, don't stop. He
Mm,
said, just you'll hate yourself for the rest of your life if you didn't finish, um, even if you don't get the record. So I really
okay.
appreciate him telling me that. I think that took a lot of the weight off of me of setting the record because my goal wasn't necessarily to set the record at that point. It was to finish as fast as I could, which
Okay.
happened to be the record.
Right. Right. Okay, so I'm picturing a very sleep deprived man hiking in the middle of the night, hiking in the daytime, eating whatever food scraps he can find along the way. Am I painting a fairly clear picture of what this looked like in the middle of the attempt?
Yeah, I mean, it was just around the clock, and um, I didn't talk a whole lot to anyone. I'd say hi. I'm a nice guy on the trail. I say hi. Um, and yeah, I ate mostly in the van. You know, I'd eat what I could, a burrito, sandwich, whatever, and just granola bars and cashews on the trail.
Okay. Okay. And at what point did you know that you had the record with Insight?
Um, I think after I so the last day of the Sawatch range. So it was like on um, Albert or Massive. I realized like something really bad is going to have to happen for me to
Mm,
not get this record.
okay.
You know, like there's always the chance of getting injured or whatever. But you know, even if the weather is the worst weather anyone's ever seen, like I'm still going to get this record.
Mm,
Um, and so I would have had to have like serious injury to have stopped me. And that was good and bad. At first, it was like, "Whoo, yes, this is awesome. I'm going to have the record. This is everything I dreamed about." And then your mind, you know, especially at this point because you're so sleep deprived, starts playing these tricks. And it was like, it was really mentally hard. The last 4 days were some of the hardest 4 days mentally because I was your mind just kept saying, "Hey, Dan, you got the record. Slow down, take a nap." You
mm.
know? I was like, "All you got to do, Dan, is finish less than 16 days and 13 hours. Like, what are you moving so fast for?" And like literally, it was like the little devil on your shoulder saying these things. Um, I really wish I had not been aware of that fact because it the last 4 days were really mentally tough because of that.
So are you slowing down during those 4 days, or are you just trying to fight the demons in your head?
I think I kept going at the rate I could have gone. The last 4 days did not go well. My lowest point was on the second to last day, I guess. And yeah, I mean, it was tough. I don't know if I slowed down. I didn't meet. This is funny because I got the record, right? I should be like thrilled with myself. I didn't meet either of the goals I had for myself. Of at first I wanted to have a 13-day something on the record, and I got a 14-day. And you know, when I realized I couldn't get the 13, that was kind of a bummer. And then my other one is I wanted to beat the record by a full 2 days, and I missed it by like a couple hours. so,
Mm,
so when I finished, I was mostly just bummed that I didn't get either of those goals. I wasn't like happy about setting the record. I was bummed I missed those goals, but I did push pretty hard. I screwed some strategy up. I tried to push too hard, too far out. So like same as like on a marathon or really any running race. Like I gave it a kick at the end, but I went out too early. And so I tried to cut all sleep down basically and only take 10 to 20-minute naps between mountains. And that that didn't work. And then I had like total shutdown the second to last day, and it was bad. I was a real mess. I developed an uncontrollable cough. It was like I was
mm,
laying on top of Tories at dark, and I was like, I just need 10 minutes of sleep, but I was coughing so hard consistently
mm.
that I couldn't even sleep, even though I was so tired. And so I kind of I kind of shot myself in the foot on that one.
So you're literally pushing yourself to the brink of exhaustion out there.
Yeah, for sure. Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every
Yep.
day.
Every day I thought tomorrow will be easy, and guess what? Tomorrow wasn't any easier.
Only easy day was yesterday.
Yeah. Yep.
And so what was the last few peaks?
So I finished on longs. It was the last day was Bierstadt, Evans, and longs. And,
Okay.
that was the night before that. I got done with Gray's Tories, which is when I was telling you I was coughing, and then Gray's, and then got down at, I don't know, whatever it was, 10:30 p.m. I think it was, or 11 p.m. And I was coughing uncontrollably. And what I was worried about was that was like, I was actually not going to set the record. Like, this, my body is going to get to a point where it's just going to stop, and someone's going to have to take me to the hospital. I'm never going to get this record. So that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to sleep for 4 hours, even though I was just going to go to bed at 11 and wake up at 1 a.m. or 12:30 or something, and go try to get this record in less than, get that 2-day thing that I was looking for. And that's when I gave it up. I said, you know what if I might not set the record altogether? So get that extra 4 hours. I got to started up Bierstadt at, like, I don't know, it was before dawn, but right before dawn. That whole thing was fine. It was very melodramatic. Drove to longs. It's the only time in the entire record I had to stop driving part way and take a nap because I was too tired to drive. I was driving while literally holding my eyes open like this. And I set out from the beginning. I said it in my post before I started. I don't know how it's a rule. Andrew and I argued that you can make this rule, but I said that you have to be able to drive safe. Like, it was my rule that myself and anyone following me has to drive safe. And so as soon as I realized I was, like, holding my eyes open, I pulled over, took a nap on the way to longs. Longs was like a perfectly hard finish. It was storming the whole way up. I got rained on, I got snowed on, I got hailed on, and then I got to the cables route. And I don't know if you ever climbed cables route.
I
on
have.
longs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really that much fun in a storm.
No, God, no.
Yeah, it's so slick. I mean, when it's not raining, it's slick. And, like, whenever, it was like, it was just a perfectly hard finish. I talked to God. I was like, look, if it's storming when I get on top, I'm not going to go down cables, even though that was the plan. I'm going to have to go down the standard route. And I was hoping the whole way that, it was going to burn off and the sun was going to come out. Didn't happen. Thunder going nonstop when I got to the top. And so took the standard route down, literally slid down the home stretch. It was, it's all polished from people going up it, but when it's wet, it's like a slide. So I literally like sat on my butt and slid to the bottom of it. And I ran all the way down. And my body, actually, the weird thing is my legs were, other than my knees, which I burned up on day one, and they never really got too much worse than it was after day one. They were bad the entire time. But other than that, I had no issues. Like, I felt pretty great on the last one physically, as far other than being exhausted. And I ran. My family and some friends were at the finish line. They all thought I was going to be like an hour and a half later. So I came running in, and no one saw me coming. I was like, I'm screaming, I'm waving my arms. I'm like, it's me, I'm coming. And I could see they were all like looking the other way, drinking a beer. And I was like, someone take a picture. And no one got a picture of my finish. I got somebody got a video, so I got like a screenshot off the video. It was all really melodramatic, though. I mean, it was not. I cried probably 10 times during the record, thinking about how amazing the finish was going to be. And then the day before the end, the second to last day, I had a total mental breakdown on coming off of Lincoln on DeCalibran. And like a total, like, I was screaming and throwing things and crying. Like, it was bad. Like a little toddler throwing a fit, and it went on for like 10 minutes too.
What was that all about?
It was when I was trying to not sleep, and I got up to it had hailed on me or stormed on me every day for like 5 days straight.
Mm.
And then I for some reason on Princeton I got 7 blisters on my feet. And then the next day it was like 85 and humid at elevation, like at 12,000 feet. And I had all these blisters on my feet, and I was going to take good care of them. And I tripped and fell into Browns Creek, like at the beginning of the day. And so I was like, my feet were soaked, I was soaked, and it was hot and humid. And I hate hot and humid weather. It's just like all this stuff built up. And I was just like, I was angry that like all these things kept happening, and then the weather sucked, and I just wanted it to be easy. And I got to the top of Lincoln, and weather was actually pretty good. And I took a nap, and I like took a nap because I felt comfortable with the weather. And I woke up, and I don't know how it happened. It was like 10 minutes later, this massive storm was like right there, like coming in fast. It was probably moving about 40 miles an hour and like straight for me. And you could see the lightning bolts coming out of it. I mean,
Mm.
it was like Zeus was up there chucking lightning bolts out. And so I took off running because you to head towards Bross and all that, you got to go like straight west, and then you hook to the south. And so I'm running straight into it, and the whole time I'm like, it's just lightning bolts. And so I'm running underneath Cameron, and Cameron's just getting destroyed, and I just lost it. I was mad at God. I was mad at the world. I just wanted it to be easy for once, just one freaking mountain that it wasn't like this, and I
Yeah.
just lost it. And I was at at a low point going into that, but that situation pushed me over the edge, and I was screaming and throwing rocks and kicking things, and yeah, it was bad. I'm glad I was by myself because it helped to get that out. But what happened was, that was not what I would never have predicted. Was that drained me of everything. Like up until that point of the whole record, I had felt like this was a really meaningful experience emotionally. Like during the record, I saw some incredible sunsets, and even though I was so out of it and sleep deprived, it just was, I would like cry from happiness at those moments. And then after that incident on below Cameron, I had zero emotion in me at all, at all. Like I had nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. I felt no joy. I felt no anger. I felt nothing. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel down anymore. I felt literally nothing at all. And so when I finished, I literally felt nothing, and I felt like it was the record robbed that from me, because I had, like I said before this, like cried like 10 times, dreaming about how amazing this record was going to be. My family was going to be there. It was going to be hugs and tears and all this like amazingness. And when I got to the finish line, I literally felt nothing. I just
Mm.
sat down and said, I'm glad that's over. and and I felt like that was one of the hardest things about the whole record, is having that taken from me. Like I felt like the record stole the record from me. I don't know how
Mm.
to explain it. Like I felt like I was robbed
Mm.
of what I deserved, and that was hard. And I think, if anyone's listening that wants to go after something like this, like that's the reality of how these things end up, is they're depraved. I really like, that's a word I would describe the record as: depraved. Like I felt like it depraved me of my humanity
Mm.
by the end of it.
Hmm. That's really interesting. I mean, we go after these records and these speed climbs, and they're all sort of arbitrary anyways, and then once you
Yeah.
finish it and you're expecting to have this the skies open up and the sun shine down on you, and I completed this thing, and that's just not quite the way it goes. Sometimes you finish and yeah, it's just sit down on a rock and say, I'm glad that's done.
Yeah. Yep.
Was there a point, like a day or a few days later, where you were able to really appreciate the whole thing and what you've been through?
It took a while. I mean, I was excited. I mean, the whole world was excited. I set the record, so like it wasn't that. Oh shoot. Um, I Oh, I'm good. Sorry, I thought I made an appointment real quick. I apologize.
Oh.
My phone just gave me an announcement. I'm like, oh, did I miss an appointment? We're good. We're good. Sorry, I got hours.
That's right.
Um, yeah, I mean, it was hard, man. I did not have the joy out of it. It like absorbed over a month, I guess. I just don't know. I needed time. Like I literally had felt like my humanity was taken from me. And there was other things like when I had crossed the Bells Traverse in a storm, in a bad storm too. I mean, it was bad. It was I thought I was gonna die. I really did. And I had to make that decision to keep going. And I have kids, and like the decision was is turn around and do the right thing and be a dad and love my kids in the way they deserve to be loved, and say no or keep going and set this record. And I chose to set the record, and that kind of wrecked me that I made that decision.
Mm,
And that was the direction I took with it. And so there was just a lot of like heavy stuff to deal with. So it took like a month to kind of work through that, honestly, to feel
mm,
really the joy of setting the record. And now I have joy that I set the record.
yeah.
Yeah, it was complex. It was not how I anticipated any of that to be,
Wow.
um, by any means.
But you did it.
I did it.
Against everything, you did it. And in the beginning, I think you said that you had a fairly decent weather window and you missed a bunch of weather by getting in that car accident. But then as you're
Yeah,
telling the story, you're like, yeah, this one was a storm, the next peak horrible storm, between the maroons horrible storm. So it doesn't sound like the
yeah.
weather was exactly perfect.
It wasn't, but it was better than the following weeks. So
Okay.
it was a really, like, I didn't climb for, till September really after that, but, um, but everyone was telling me how bad it was, like, later that month in early
Mm,
August, and, the week before and there's levels of bad weather too, like, I got in all these hailstorms, that storm on the Traverse was terrible, but there's worse weather out there than I experienced.
mhm,
What I experienced on Yale, like, in mid at the week between the accident when I started was impassable weather, like, it was after dark, 50-mile-an-hour winds and, like, a torrential Midwest style rainstorm, not the typical Colorado where it's gonna, storm for an hour and then the sun will come back out thing. It rained for like 14 hours straight
mm,
um, that night, and that's the weather I avoided. I never once had like 14 hours of rain or something like that. And so yeah, I'm thankful for the weather I had. It just was not easy. I don't want to like make it sound like it was all sunny and everything. And also like the Bells was the only time I had bad weather on something technical. Um, every other technical mountain, and the Bells is the last of the technical ones on the route.
mhm.
Every other technical mountain I had passable weather on.
Okay.
Um, it was great on Capitol. It kind of stormed between Capitol and Snowmass, and then it was great on Snowmass. Like it was always passable, and so
Yeah.
I'm thankful for that.
Okay. Okay. And then knowing what you know now, having done this thing, if you were to go back and try and set the record again, what changes would you make? Whether it's logistically or route finding?
There was one big thing that I would change, and I'm not gonna say what it is, because I don't mean that in a bad way. Like there is like a part of this where the journey was 2 years. Like that's setting the record was the 2-year journey, not the 14 days. And so whoever wants to set this record next, like I think that has to be part of their journey as well.
Mm,
And I
mhm.
don't think I wouldn't feel nearly the way I do about this record had I not gone on a 2-year journey to of setting this record. So there was a big reroute. I would have comboed some mountains that I didn't combo in the middle of it. Other than that, I think I would re-strategize my food strategy, and that you just can't eat while you're driving all the time. And then I made all of the food that I was going to eat, and if I was to do it differently, I think I would have gotten like a bunch of takeout stuff as well, just for taste variety, because I needed something more to look forward to in eating. Eating is well documented on these long multi-day records is one of the hardest things. Your body rejects food big time. It's like it's so exhausted, it doesn't want to put energy into digesting food, and it literally feels like you're going to throw up when you're trying to eat. At the same time, you're burning, I don't know how many calories a day I burn. Well over 5,000, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Probably closer to
Probably
10,000 a
closer
day.
to 10. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're burning 10,000 calories a day. You need to eat all the time, and so it's this diametrically opposed problem of that. And so the more you can do to entice your body to want to eat good, tasty food, the better off you
Mm.
are. And so my handmade stuff was not nearly as tasty as takeout.
Were you making your food like present time on the fly, or were these pre-made meals that you had made beforehand?
Everything was pre-made and frozen. So I had this huge freezer in the back, and then I had a smaller refrigerator freezer in the front. And so I would move 3 or 4 days of food at a time into the smaller one, 2 days at a time into the smaller one that was a refrigerator, and then eat out of that directly.
Okay. Okay. Well, what an adventure, right? Like looking back
Yeah.
on this, and all the hardships you've gone through to get this record, like, and now a little time has passed, you've been able to sleep on it. You got to feel pretty good about it, right? Like looking back on this, how do you feel? Do you feel like this has to be like a big moment in your life?
Yeah, huge moment.
Yeah.
I dreamed about it for 9 years.
Yeah. Right.
um, oh man, yeah, no, it really feels good now. It really does. Like
Good.
it was dark at the time, and I had to work through some internal stuff to make it good. But yeah, I mean, it really does feel amazing, and
Good.
I'm really glad it's over. And um, yeah, it really is. It's pretty special.
Yeah.
I wish people could experience what I've experienced this year.
Mm, mm. Do you have anything else planned for the future? I mean, having done this, you've got an incredible amount of fitness and mountain climbing legs on you. Are you thinking about Nolan's? Are you thinking about doing this thing faster? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well,
What's rolling around in your mind?
yeah. So I supported Andrea Nolan's this year, right? She set the record. She's awesome.
Yeah.
That whole experience, just supporting it was amazing. That was really cool. And yeah, that set a Nolan's bug with me. And of course, Andrew and Andrea aren't letting that go either.
Good.
They get,
Good.
every time I talk to them, they're like, "All right, Dan, when are you doing Nolan's?" Uh, yeah, I think going into this year, I never thought I would be capable of doing Nolan's. And then after obviously accomplishing this, I feel like Nolan's is within my scope.
Mm,
I have, I would just like to finish Nolan's in under 60 hours. I also have a really interesting Nolan's project that I'm not going to announce, but that's on my
really?
radar too. Yeah.
Nice.
That,
Okay.
that if I have the ability to train enough to pull it off, that would be really cool.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to hear about it, man. And so are you thinking 2023? Is that a goal of yours for the year?
Yeah, I'm training right now.
Good.
Like I'm going to climb mountains next year. So, yep, I'm training a couple hours a day again, and we'll see what happens next summer.
Nice. Nice.
I think the beauty of something like Nolan's, especially I live in Minnesota, is that it's 60 hours max, right? Like it's not 2 weeks with permits that you can't avoid. Like that. The 14er record was my whole life for 2 years, and it was my whole summer, and I was gone all the time. Something like Nolan's, like I can show up if the weather's bad, I can try it next week, and so
Hmm.
on and so forth. You know, eh, there will be recovery, but it won't be the 2 months of recovery I needed from the 14er record and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So I think in the future I'll set my sights on those kind of projects more so than the sizable one I just finished.
Yeah. Well, everything's got to seem easy compared to the sizable one you just finished.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what I say when I finish Nolan's.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've taken a couple shots at Nolan's and haven't had my lucky weekend yet, so to speak. But yeah, just having what you have under your belt, it's got to make Nolan's seem like kind of a cakewalk. Even though, yeah, once you get out there, it's going to be tough and you're going to have your
Yeah,
struggles. But it's on the scale, it's so much smaller than what you just did. It's gotta
yeah.
There's got to be a mental edge there.
For sure. Yeah. Like I'm not worried about Nolan's. I don't know if I'll be able to do it or not, but I'm not worried about it the way I was worried about the 14 record.
Yeah.
It'd be like a fun endeavor to do Nolan's.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm excited about it. Nolan's is so cool, dude. Like, well, I mean, it's just like this really special thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it like in the rest of the world. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for that.
Well, cool, man. When you head out this way, you'll have to let me know because I'd love to be on the team to whether it's crewing, pacing, climbing the last couple mountains with you, or just being at the
Totally.
finish line to celebrate, man. I'd love to be a part of it.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate that. I'll reach out to you.
For
And you're in
sure. Please
Boulder,
do.
so I'm out in Boulder all the time. So
Oh,
we should
cool.
we should connect.
Definitely. Definitely. I'd love to. And then what about the future? Are you thinking 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, or are you just kind of staying in the present at this point?
Yeah, it's oh man, dude, like there's a lot that goes on with this whole thing. So I'm 37. I set this record, and like the great thing about setting records, you set a record, you feel amazing. But also the bad thing about a record, especially starting with such a huge one, is that everything else sort of seems insignificant after that. And so I would say this fall mentally has been quite hard for me, especially just back in Minnesota, raising my kids, trying to figure all that out. Like it's hard. It's really hard to step down from something. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think like I had mentioned, my dad's my climbing partner. He's in his 60s and he's a badass and he's fast. I want that to be me 20, 30 years from now.
Hmm.
So I do want to look at the long path here. My dad would be proud of me for saying this. He tells me all the time, you need to slow down and stop racing mountains because you're not going to be able to do it forever. And you don't want to wreck your body to do it forever. So I love mountains. I really do. And someday my kids are going to grow up and I'm going to hopefully move to Colorado. And and I want to just enjoy mountains. I want to climb the Sangre Range from north to south, stay on the ridge and just experience the most amazing things in the mountains. So I would like to, pursue some more records while I'm young, but after that's impractical. I just want to enjoy the mountains and the beauty and the goodness and all of that. Because I don't, who can ask for more than that? Like
Hmm.
that's just the dream of a life. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it sounds like your heart's in the right place. It's not like your ego is in charge and you just want to go out and crush all these big records and just make a name for yourself. Like your heart's in the right place. And it sounds like your love for the mountains is what outshines everything else. You just love being in the mountains and you want to
yeah,
just continue exploring into old age. And I'm with you there and I can appreciate that. And I think that's special, man. So well,
yeah,
hats off to you and the record, man. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I live in Colorado and it's still just mind blowing to me, like how that's even possible and how it's even possible for a Minnesota guy to come out and do it is just mind blowing to me. So hats off, man. Congrats.
yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. Well, listen, man, if you come to Boulder, please stay in touch. If you're thinking Nolan's next year, again, please stay in touch. I'd love to be a part of it,
Yeah,
or at least just come out and say congrats. But
totally.
huge accomplishment this year and look forward to meeting you in person, man.
Cool. Awesome. Likewise. And thank you so much. This has been awesome. I appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it, man. I love talking all things 14ers, Nolan's, ultra marathons. I love it all. So this has been a treat for me. So yeah, thank you so much, man.
All right. Sounds good. We'll talk to you soon.
Cool, Dan. See ya.
All right.
Take
See
care.
ya.